Family refuses to pay hospital fine for mother's long-term stay. Saskatchewan teachers overwhelmingly reject offer from government. A high-profile Conservative candidate quits nomination campaign alleging corruption. Quebec's National Assembly is set to sue Québécois over unpaid rent. And 3 Boeing planes have had emergencies in the past week. Good morning. It's Friday, May 10th. It's Friday. I'm Nora. Here are your headlines. Today we start in Tecumseh, Ontario, which is not too far from Windsor, where Michelle Campeau told journalists that her family refuses to pay the $8,400 bill that they've gotten from the hospital Hotel Dieu Grace Healthcare. Jennifer Lagrassa from CBC News reports that Campeau's mother has been at the hospital since January, and the fine is being used to try and force her mother into a long-term care facility. When Campeau's family saw the state of the long-term care facility that the hospital had chosen, they refused it. They said this, quote, "She wouldn't even put her dog there," unquote. That's how Lagrassa described it. The provincial government passed legislation that allows the hospital to charge patients who refuse to move to long-term care a daily fee. As of September 2022, a hospital could choose a long-term care bed for a patient, and a patient would have no choice but to take it, or really be sent to it. Campeau's mother's fine as a result has been $400 per day. This law is trying to address a very serious problem, which is that hospitals don't have enough long-term capacity. People who need care but who are not in need of urgent or critical care are then stuck in a system that has no good options for them. Rather than expanding alternative level of care beds in hospitals, these geniuses in the Ford government have just imposed fines. And of course, the leadership of the hospitals are going along with it. The CEO of the hospital, Bill Mara, confirmed that Campeau's family is the only one that they've charged so far under Bill 7. He explains that it's a necessary last resort. Mara explains that he thinks fining people is necessary because there are 12 people in Emerge at his hospital right now waiting for a bed. 11 other families were sent to long-term care facilities in the past recent days, said Mara, and they were facilities that they didn't want to go to. Thanks to them agreeing to go even though they didn't want to, they have freed up those hospital beds. It seems to me that there could be other options here than forcing families into really ridiculous situations with fines. Next, some great news out of Saskatchewan. Late last night, or I guess late last night if you're on Eastern or Atlantic or Newfoundland time, teachers in Saskatchewan told the provincial government to stuff it after the provincial government offered the teachers an 8% wage increase over 3 years. CBC News' Liam O'Connor reports that 92.2% of the members of the Saskatchewan Teachers Federation voted 90% against the province's offer. Now, 8% over 3 years is a pretty ridiculous and frankly insulting offer, but pay isn't actually the biggest issue for the teachers. It's class size and class complexity. As one teacher told me, you can have a classroom of grade 5s, and in that classroom, you can have children whose capacities range the full gambit of grades. So in a single grade 5 class, you can have kids who are still at a grade 2 level and kids who are much higher at a grade 8 level, and the teachers got to deal with all of these issues. The province has refused to take either issue seriously, saying that it isn't their job to manage the education system in that province. It's the school board's jobs. School boards who are wholly funded by the province and mandated by the province and who must follow provincial direction. The teachers have taken a variety of pressure tactics, including a few days of strike. A rejection vote of that strength, though, shows that the teachers are ready to fight, and it should make the government extremely nervous. Next, the Conservatives have just lost a would-be candidate who is running in the riding of Aurora Oak Ridge's Richmond Hill. Sabrina Nadeau, a former columnist with the National Post, announced that she was quitting the race over what she called corrupt processes in the nomination. Nadeau said that the efforts of the party to sway the vote, presumably away from her, were quote-unquote potentially illegal. The spokesperson of the party, Sarah Fisher, said that there was nothing wrong here. And actually, Mado emailed all members in a way that suggested that she improperly had access to a membership list. CBC's Jean-Paul Tasker reports that Mado only sold about 50 memberships, according to an anonymous source. Mado said that actually she sold more than 200 memberships. Either way, those are pretty low numbers, and Mado was probably going to lose. Members in the riding also got sent an email that smeared Mado for having liberalish values on issues that are not actually controversial. Now to Quebec for a story that I thought was weird enough to merit a national mention. The National Assembly of Quebec is planning to sue the media company Québecor because Québecor has stopped paying its rent. That's right. They've stopped paying the rent in the press gallery. They just were like, we're not paying rent anymore. And the National Assembly was like, you can't do that. Québecor is a sizable media empire in the province, and journalists in the National Press Gallery work for the Journal de Québec, the Journal de Montréal, TVA, and other media companies. Québecor said that they would stop paying the rent because of the crisis, they say, that's facing media companies. Internet giants have taken 80% of their ad revenue, and therefore Québecor shouldn't be expected to pay rent. Their rent, by the way, was about $8,448 per month until they started to scale back the space that they were occupying in the press gallery. They still do operate a small studio, and some 10 people work out of there at the same time when the assembly is sitting. Hugo Jonca with La Presse, which is not a Québecor newspaper, could not get Québecor to respond to his questions about this. And I will just note that on last Sunday, Dominique Lelièvre with Le Journal de Montréal wrote an article, this is so hilarious, called this, quote, "This is starting to be irritating. Unpaid rents, a financial stress for landlords." Okay, Québecor. My God. Okay, and finally, the Associated Press is reporting that 2 Boeing 737 planes were involved in accidents yesterday within a matter of hours. One plane had its tire burst while landing in Turkey, and another skidded off the runway in Senegal. 10 people were injured in the accident in Dakar. After the plane skidded, it caught fire. The plane was operated by Air Sénégal. No one was injured in the event in Turkey, where a 737-800's nose gear didn't deploy. The plane is operated by Corendon Airlines, a Turkish-based airline that had just left Germany. The Associated Press says that it was the third incident involving a Boeing this week, after a Boeing 767 cargo airplane operated by FedEx made an emergency landing in Istanbul over its front landing gear failing. But AP didn't mention a fourth emergency situation with a Boeing plane. That happened in Canada. An Air France 737-900 that was going from France to the United States had to make an emergency landing in Iqaluit after crew, quote-unquote, smelled fire. And just to note, it's one thing for the Associated Press to miss the Iqaluit emergency landing, but this piece ran in global news, not mentioning that there had been a fourth Boeing emergency in Canada. I know that it's wire copy, but God, Canadian media, we're just watching the wings fall off of the industry. Update this for a Canadian audience. Do a little bit of journalism for us here, folks. Those are your headlines for Friday, May 10th. I'm Nora. Listen, I've been doing something this week, and I don't know if you've noticed. Maybe you noticed yesterday because there was a bit of a mistake, and I don't know how that all worked out and for how you actually receive your podcast, but I have been recording these so late, so early in the morning that I've been able to release them. So it's an actual morning news podcast, especially for the folks in the Atlantic and Newfoundland time zones. Let me know if you notice a difference. Let me know if you like it this way. I have been doing this at night. That's the magic. The magic is gone. Okay, I'm recording this the night before. So every time I'm like, it's Friday, it's actually Thursday. I'm going to bed in like 5 seconds. But does this make it better? Is it better to get this earlier in the morning? Will you listen to the podcast more? Will you tell your friends more? For me, I like it better because my mornings are now totally stress-free and my nights are not too stressful. So I'd love to hear your feedback. I did it every day this week, and I think I'm going to be able to mostly do it in the days ahead. I don't actually see why I won't be able to. You're listening to this podcast at sandynora.com, on the Real News Network podcast feed, and anywhere you get your podcasts. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. I hope that it's getting warm and maybe green wherever you are. And like always, I'll talk to you on the other side.